Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for stopping by and joining us today for Calculating Costs, How to Price It Right. Looks like we've got a real good attendance today and a lot of sign up. And I want to thank everybody out there first and foremost over the past couple of days that have helped me get some data. I know a lot of you guys are here right now and anxious to see what I've got to present. And it was a real help for you to come through like that. And the final hour, it seemed like, and give me the data that we needed to make this spreadsheet a little bit better for you. But today we're going to talk about calculating costs and how to figure out what it really costs you. And then we're going to give you some tools to do it a little easier. And we're going to also talk about how to price things. And that was that data that I got yesterday from a lot of people to help with that. So first and foremost, the first slide that's going to come up here is I'm telling you to stop. I want you guys to go to the web address that's listed there. It's at http://tinyurl one, and that will go to a Google Documents page. And you quick little 4-question survey is just to get us some information so I can add you to a email list. Promise I won't spam you with it. The list is so that I can send out updates when we have updates to the calculator that I'm going to give to everybody. I've already got a couple areas on there that I'm working on for updates. I've been working on this thing for the past week straight, it seems like. And I anticipate by the end of this week or beginning of next week we'll have a couple more items in there, including some links to videos to help walk you through the calculator. So I'll give a couple more seconds here. We've had a few more people join just recently, but if you guys can grab that link there and download the calculator, just fill out the form real quick. And we'll go on to, Jody, why don't we do the survey questions, and that'll give people a chance to also download the file.
Okay. So
first one here, do you use digital heat transfer medias? Real simple one, yes or no. Digital heat transfer medias, we're talking about something that you would print or print and cut. That could also include a inkjet sheet.
I still have some people voting. We'll just wait just a couple more seconds.
Sure, absolutely. I was taking a quick drink of water there myself. Yeah.
Okay, we'll close
it. It looks like we still have people joining in too.
Yep, so I'll send them the link in just a couple minutes.
Okay. Okay, so we've got yes is 95%. I suspect a bunch of you guys out there are VersaCAM users or equivalent. And then just a few you knows. So thank you for that information. And let's put up the next one.
And that's, what brand of cutter do you have?
And the options here, just select all that apply, the Roland, Ioline, GCC, other, or if you don't use a cutter at all, you can say none there. For those of you that are just joining, if you look in the chat section, I believe that's where you've got it at, Jody, there's going to be a link to download the calculator that we're going to use later on in the webinar. So take a look for that, and if you don't have it, just post something in the chat and Jody will pop it back in there for you. And it also comes up in between these polls. All right, it looks like we got some results coming up here. 61% with the Roland, outstanding, my favorite. The Ioline at 11, GCC at 12%, other 20%. Be interested to hear what those are if anybody wants to send me an email to answer it other, and then none at 16%. So I believe we have 2 more poll questions.
Yep. And then the next one is, do you use CAD-cut vinyl medias?
Okay. Real simple, yes or no. Also gives you guys, you can hit one real quick and gives you a little bit of time to fill out that form and download the calculator. Boy, we still have people coming in right now. Watching that little attendee list grow, it's kind of nice. All right.
Okay, so we'll close that up. And
I suspect this one's going to be real high.
Yeah. And I'm actually sending,
76%.
oops, sorry, Stephen. I'm actually sending everyone the link that you sent me for the.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah.
You sending it through email, I'm taking
Yep,
it?
actually through
Okay.
the web chat so everyone should receive it in their little chat box.
Excellent. Appreciate that.
hmm
So one last survey question, and then we'll jump into the whole webinar and all the meat and potatoes of it.
So then which media type would you say you use the most? I apologize for the typo there. That's actually type and not tie. That's what
Oh, I
happens when
didn't
you
even
try
catch
to,
it.
I know, it's what happens when you try to type too fast.
It happens to me all the time. That's why spell check and autocorrect is a wonderful feature for a guy like me. Uh, three choices here. Plastisol transfers, that'd be something like from Transfer Express. CAD cut medias, anything that's a single CAD cut non-printable, and then the digital print medias, of course.
Okay, looks like just about everyone voted, it looks like, or at least close. So I'm going to close the poll right now.
Okay.
Lots of digital.
Excellent. Well, that's my favorite personally, but Plastisol transfers, an amazing way to get things done. My wife's shop, she uses them at least every day, and while we're using the CAD cut and the digital every day too. So I would suspect in that one was actually going to be closer to almost a split all the way down, a third, a third, and third. So interesting. Thank you all for that information. The URL's there again one more time on the page here. You can see for downloading it. You don't have to follow along, but some people prefer to have that there so they can, mess around on their computer while they're watching and listening to what I say too. So let's get into the webinar. Thanks, Jody, for helping me out there.
Thank you, Stephen.
Okay. First and foremost, my pleasure. First and foremost, we're going to talk about, this is just an overview to give you kind of bullets of what we're going to hit today. We're going to find out what does it cost to do these different jobs, how to calculate that cost, and go through all the steps of doing a basic calculation, and then show you what changes for different types of medias or jobs. Talk about a couple different preferred pricing methods. I have my own personal opinion on it, and there's no necessarily right or wrong way, but I'll show you a couple different methods that people do, and we'll talk about that. Then we're going to get into the calculator itself that you guys downloaded there and show you how to work through it, edit some of the data, and then run calculations on it. So we've got a lot to go over. All right, so basic calculation. Basic calculation that I'm using here today is I'm going to use a digital media. And I'm glad that we had a majority of the people there in digital, so this will follow right along for you. One of my favorite to use is QuickPrint. It's a great media to work with for cotton and poly blends. And it's about $330 for a roll, and that's for a 30-inch by 22-yard roll. So with that 30-inch by 22-yard roll, I like to calculate in my shipping too because, well, shipping's not free. So with the shipping in there, my total cost is going to be $340 to get that roll in my shop and ready to do something with. Whenever I am doing a job, this basic calculation is going to be the same based on what type of job I'm doing. So I'm using QuickPrint here, but I could be using EcoPrint, I could be using EcoFilm. I need some sort of media, and then I need the other portions to get that job done. So let's break down the QuickPrint, and I like personally using square foot pricing. But let's break it down a little bit and see how much this actually costs us on this. So I can't use that entire 30 inches of media. A lot of times people I hear say, well, I can get 29 inches, 28.5 inches. I like to be a little bit conservative when I'm doing my calculations. So I put 1.5 inches in there for the rollers, the pinch rollers on either side. This would be the same for a CAD cut media only, say like EcoFilm. I'm still going to have those pinch rollers on my cutter and not be able to go past them. So I've only got 28.5 inches to work with. In a yard, we got 3 feet in a yard, and there's 22 yards long in this roll that we have here for the calculation, so that's 66 feet long. And in 66 feet, each one of those feet is 12 inches. So I get 792 inches long. And remember, from up above, we're going to take that 792 and multiply it by 28.5, which was the usable width, because I'm looking for usable material. When we calculate our costs, I need to know the most restrictive end, so I'd rather go with the usable material than add that other 1.5 inches all the way down both sides that I can't get anything out of, and it's really costing me money. So I've got 22,572 square inches, a big number and hard to work with, but we've got 144 square inches in a square foot. That's 12 by 12 inches. 12 times 12 is 144. So I can divide that total usable area by that, and I get 156.75 square feet of usable area. So that tells me how much area I've got. I know my cost of this, of the media plus shipping, was $340. So I take my $340 and divide it by 156.75, and I get $2.17 per square foot. Now, if this was a EcoFilm, the only variables that would really change in there would be the cost of the roll. I've still got shipping in there, but everything else in the calculation is the same. If I'm working with a CAD-cut decal vinyl, the same applies to it. The only variable that's going to change in this is the cost of the roll. And of course, how wide it is and the length of it. You can put that in there. But all the other conversions and everything work the same. So I also, for quick print, I need mask. Well, with mask, I'm going to use EcoMask with this particular product, and that's $60 for a 10-yard roll. Shipping's $10, so I get a total of $70 that this is going to cost me. Well, 30 inches times 10 yards, we're going to go into that calculation again, but remember that I'm not losing anything from the rollers on this. This isn't going through the machine. My mask I'm applying on top of it, so I don't have to subtract out that 1.5 inches for the rollers. I can use that entire area there. So I'm not losing anything with that. So, and I also have found that in a lot of projects, not all of them, I can use the mask usually at least twice. Now, if I'm working with a real kind of pilly fleece, it's not going to be able to use, sometimes not even more than once. My wife, her current record in the shop for reusing the same piece of mask is 13 times. I can't say that we get that every time, but we try to reuse the mask and be economical about it and save ourselves some money. So I can say, if conservatively, I can use that mask twice, and I'm not losing anything from the roller. So the same conversions as above. I've got 3 feet times 10 yards equals 30 feet. That 30 feet times 12 inches is 360 inches long. That's my length. And then I'm going to take that and multiply it by 30 inches wide to get my total square inch of media that I can use. And that's a big number, but we'll divide it by that 144. Don't forget, 144 square inches in a square foot, which is going to give me 75 square feet of material. Again, I take my price of it, $70, divided by 75 square feet, and that gives me a cost of 93 cents per square foot. But I'm using this media twice. I'm using that is in my calculation here. So if I'm going to use it twice, I divide by 2, and I get 46 cents per square foot. So now I've got my mask, I've got my media, and with a digital print job, I need one more variable. That last variable is ink. Now with ink, what I did, I've heard all sorts of different numbers out there. I've heard everything down from 11 cents per square foot up to 60 cents per square foot and everything in between. And what we did is in the shop where I'm at, they have 4 different printers. I took the running total of everything that those printers had done for 4 printers for 2 weeks, and I averaged it out by the amount of material that went through it. The program that we use to run the roll in VersaCAMS is VersaWorks, and it has a job log in there where you can see all this data. You can even export it to an Excel spreadsheet. So I was able to take the numbers and figure out exactly how much per square foot average I was running in my shop. And for us here, it was 25 cents per square foot. That's not including the white and metallic inks. So this is just CMYK. So my running average was 25 cents a square foot. So now I've got my media, I've got my mask, and I've got ink. All the basic components to do this digital print. If I was changing it to a digital print for signed products, my basic media would change. If I was doing a CAD-cut only film, I wouldn't need the mask or the ink in my calculation, but I would need that initial calculation to figure out how much per square foot that media cost me. So let's go to the next slide. And this one pulls up the information from the previous slide. I've got the roller quick print, the mask, and the ink, and how much it cost me per square foot on each one of those. And I add them all up, and I get $2.88 per square foot to work with this media. If I wanted to get it down to square inch, simply, once again, divide it by 144, and I get my cost per square inch on that. Well, the question that always comes up after this, everybody says, well, what about overhead? We're going to kind of come back to this in the calculator, and I'm going to show you how to use the calculator to get your overhead. But I always point out to everybody that comes to the class when I teach this that overhead is different from where you're at. I'm in upstate New York. my rent's pretty steep. Somebody who maybe is down in Ohio might have half the rent that I have. So there's no standard calculation that I can say that this is a number you should use for overhead, but we actually have an area in the calculator where you can figure out what the overhead is for your specific shop. So we will use that there. So what changes for different projects? What mask is needed? Sign projects have a different mask. Is ink needed in it or not? Shipping costs, maybe you get a discounted shipping cost. I just put $10 in there for these calculations. You can take a look and maybe average out your shipping costs for it. Does the project need grommets? Do I have specialty materials? Anything in there that's going to change, you're still going to use that same base calculation going all the way and then add in the extras afterwards. Okay, so let's talk about preferred pricing methods. Get in debates on this one fairly frequently on square inch pricing versus square foot pricing. Square foot pricing has seemed to be kind of a mainstay in the sign industry. If you start talking to predominantly sign shops, they all do square foot pricing. And a lot of the garment shops come down to square inch pricing. And I think that's a lot of times driven from us as the sales reps out there telling you as low as 2 cents per square inch and showing you how inexpensive it is. And that's all true information. There's nothing wrong with that. But if I have every customer coming in wanting a 4x4 inch design and I do it by square inch pricing, I'm going to run myself out of a shop. It's not a good way to be able to calculate out jobs and still make a good profit on it. So you can use either method, but just figure out which one works best for you and stick with it. I'm a big advocate of square foot pricing. In the past week, I've talked to a lot of different shops and getting data from them and working on the spreadsheet, and I've come across quite a few of them that use linear foot pricing. Linear foot pricing is another great way to do it. You can say, if I've got a 15-inch wide media, this job is going to take me 3 feet of length of that media. You're going to pay for X amount for each linear foot of media used. A little bit more, I think, complex to work with. Square foot pricing is easier to calculate. With linear foot pricing, you'd have to have a model for each one of those widths on that you're going to be working with. So I think square foot pricing is generally easier to calculate out and work with. Also, linear foot pricing, a lot of times you have to take a look at each specific job and figure out how it's going to kind of fit onto that media to maximize it. Where square foot, I can calculate out how much I'm going to need for that job and go right from that pricing. A lot of shops I've talked to recently have also used standard models. They'll say for X size, I'm going to charge you Y amount, and they'll have a little chart. For every left chest logo that we do in our shop, this is the charge we're going to do for it. If it's a CAD cut, this is the charge I'll do for it. If it's a digital print, nothing wrong with that model either. It's a great way to go, and it's pretty easy to work with when you have different employees, or maybe you have a lot of employees or new people. There's nothing wrong with it at all, as long as you create a chart or some sort of table and it's very consistent, easy to follow. The calculator that we're going to get into a little bit later on will help you create that chart. If you wanted to, you can figure out your square foot pricing, you can figure out your pricing for a standard job, and you could have standard sizes built into there and create a chart from that. Don't forget about waste. I got this one quite a bit lately too, where people are saying, if I've got a job and it's a 4x4 and I've got a 15-inch media that's 13.5, 4x4, I'm losing another 1.5 inches on that media because of the spacing in between it. And somebody's got to pay for that material. It's us in the beginning because we bought it and now we're going to use it. But what I like to do is for any job that I'm quoting out, I'm adding at least a 1/2 inch on each side of the dimensions of a single piece in it. So I've got a 4x4 inch left chest logo. I'm going to calculate it out using 4.5 by 4.5 for my calculation to account for that space in between everything and the wastage on the rollers, the pinch rollers, that 1.5 inches that we used earlier on. So somebody's paying for it, and it's not going to be me ultimately. I want to pass that on to the customer. I think this is a pretty simple method to do it, and it works very effectively. So before I jump into the calculator and get into that, and Jody, do we have any questions that are on there?
We actually have a couple. I did want to mention, just as a housekeeping note, I do have a lot of questions asking if the slides will be available. And even though I did send an email to everybody, just for those of you that have just joined, we do post the recorded version, typically within 24 hours. And then, Stephen, we can also post the PDF, and we'll also include the link in the blog post. And then that way you'll be able to access all the information that you receive here, and it'll just be there at your fingertips.
Once I have that link also, I'm going to be updating the calculator, and there's a button within it that you'll be able to click on and go directly to the YouTube video so you can review and kind of go over stuff again. So that'll all be integrated.
Yep, and that'll actually be posted at greatgarmentgraphics.com. We did have a question which you already answered about pricing by linear foot. You actually had quite a few people asking about linear inches and linear feet.
It's a very popular method, especially in the sign industry.
And sorry.
Go ahead.
And
no, go ahead.
So far, I was just going to say that's really about it, except we did have one person asking if the calculator was available just in XLS and like in a lower version for their Mac.
I can convert that over if that person wants to email me. It will disable some of the macros that are in there.
Okay. Yep. And Tom,
there's a couple macros.
Tom, Stephen's email address will be included at the end, so then that way we can get you the version that'll be compatible with your computer.
Excellent. Okay. So if that closes out the questions for right now, let's get into the calculator. We're going to go over setting up the overhead, and I wanted to point out here that overhead does not account for multiple processes. I haven't quite figured out a way to work out an equation or some sort of function in there yet. I'm working on it. That will take into account if I'm doing multiple processes. If I have a CAD cutter, say a Roland GX24, and I've got a Roland VersaCAM, and I'm printing out a banner on one and I'm CAD cutting on the other, I'm actually doing two processes at the same time. So the calculator doesn't take into account multiple processes when we're looking at overhead and also our shop rate per hour. So we are looking into that. We're going to show how to edit the data pages, use the calculator itself, resetting fields, and regional data. I've got how do I get updates down here. You signed up for the webinar, so you're going to get updates from there. If you haven't signed up for the webinar, when you go and download the calculator, if we capture your email data at that point, and we will be sending out updates to everybody from that. So let's get into the calculator. Now, wait for this to update. On your screen, you should see the calculator here. This is the main page. And up at the top, I've got the security warning. It says macros have been disabled. If you don't want to run the macros, that's fine, but the reset buttons won't work within the macro. If they're a Visual Basic function that's being run in the background, there's nothing dangerous about that, but if you don't want to use that, that's fine. You can run it without it. It just won't reset the tables with a certain button we have in there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to say enable the content. So I hit OK there, and my warning goes away. So first and foremost, we need to set up our overhead. Right here, first, go to overhead and update for your business. So we click on the little button there, and it goes right to the overhead tab for us. And we've got our shop monthly costs here. What you want to do is put down the different costs that you have. Rent, utilities, phone, internet, all the stuff that's listed there, and what it is per month for each one of those. Now there's a couple spaces underneath this. I can't click into anything out here. Let me go back to the main page and show you. Anything that's in this orangish, pinkish color, that's an area that you need to put information in. Anything that's in the gray are information headers and can't be edited. And anything that's in this green color here is a calculation result and cannot be edited, with one small exception. When you go to the overhead, this area right in here, you can add it in. So maybe I'm going to put webinar costs, and for my webinar package here, I'm going to do $50 a month. And when I hit enter on that, you can see my total changed at the bottom for what I have in expenditures per month. Now, I can also enter how many hours I'm open per week and how many weeks per year. The 50 that I've got in there, I did some research, and the industry standard, if you will, or average for how many weeks open per year is 50. And that takes into account holidays and weekends and everything else. So 50 weeks per year is what I was able to determine was the average out there. You can change it to whatever you want. Maybe you shut down for the summers, or you shut down for a month in the winter and you want to adjust that. But that will adjust your hours open per month and your operating cost per hour. This operating cost per hour is generated from all these totals. That total that's right there of all your costs, and based upon how many hours per week and how many weeks per year, it gives you how many hours per month that you're going to be open and what your operating cost is per hour. This is going to feed into several different spots in the calculation process, so we can take a look if we're charging enough to cover our hourly costs that we need to get past to be able to make more of a profit. Don't forget the payroll one here. You got to pay yourself. A lot of people do forget about that one, and you've got to either put in what you're making per month, or this one was a combination of employees from the example shop I was working with, and that was how much they're putting out per month. Again, you can add everything in down in here, and that'll update onto the rest of the sheet there. So that's a little basic on the overhead. Let's go back to the main page. Now we're going to get into each one of the different data fields. I've got a CAD cut heat transfer data, digital heat transfer data, sign media for CAD cut, and sign media for digital, and then my mask, ink, laminate, substrate, and other items in there. Each one of these is already filled out with Imprintables Warehouse products, and you can go to each one and add more or change them over. So let's take a look at the CAD cut heat transfer. When I click on that, it goes right to the tab for me. And you can see all the different medias that we have listed here: EcoFilm, SpectraFlex, our glitter, the bling down here, all the different medias. Here's the width of the roll. You would put that in yourself. You can get that data from whatever vendor you're using. And I put in 1.5 for width used by my rollers. You might change that to be a little bit less or more depending on how you operate in your shop. This is all user editable areas. Then you put the length of the roll. So maybe on these I'm just getting a 5-yard roll. Maybe I'm buying it in 25-yard lengths. If I did, I'd put in the 25, and then I'd update my price for the roll. Now on your price for the roll, this is the list price on each one of these. You would add in, maybe you get a discount on it because you buy in bulk. Maybe you add in your shipping or anything else. That price per roll should be the cost for it to get to your door. How much the media costs you, shipping, and anything else to get that to there. So these are list prices, and you can add in whatever you want for shipping. Maybe you say $5 per roll to be conservative on it, or whatever you're doing there. The areas over to the right here, I'm clicking on these, and you can't edit any of them. Those are locked calculations based on what you put in for width, length, how much was taken out by the rollers, and the price of the roll, and it will update across there. So we can do a Steve media. Down here I'll add it, and that media is 18 inches wide. And use 1.5 inches for the rollers. And get in a 5-yard length, and I'm expensive, so I'm $500 for a roll with me. And you can see it updates over here with square footage, square foot cost, sorry, and also the cost per square inch. So you can add all these down. Now you can add anywhere within this up to the black area, and it will automatically update the other sheets. When you're going for calculation, you'll be able to access that data there. If you add something outside of here, it won't update anywhere else. So once I've got all my CAD cut media, I'm going to return to my main page and go down through the rest of them. So digital heat transfer, you'll see quick print. I put that 22-yard roll that we used in our example earlier. I put $340, so I added the $10 for my shipping, and then you can see that the cost per square foot, $2.17, just like we had on the calculation earlier, and 15 cents per square inch. So again, I can add anything I want down into these areas all the way across, and it'll update the rest of the sheet. We'll return to the page there. Same exact thing for your sign media. Again, anything within the black area, and return to the main page, and the digital print medias. They're all listed there, the Imprintables products, and you've got this room down here. If I wanted to shift any of this, maybe put different medias up here and remove some, you can adjust these and it will remove them from the database. So return to the main page. The last one's a little bit different than the other ones just in layout. Same concept, but a little bit different in layout. When we go to the mask, ink, and laminates, you can see our mask here for heat transfer. And same pricing and setup as before. I've got my ink in here. I've got the 220 and 440, but there's no calculation with these two. What I did is I put that average running cost in there. We could work in a calculation for how much it is per milliliter, but I left it in square foot. And the white metallic down here, I haven't put this into the rest of the spreadsheet yet. There is a calculation for these that is per milliliter for white and metallic. And when we get to the calculation portion, I'm going to be adding a feature in the future, hopefully by next week, that you can input how many milliliters you've used of those, and it will add that to the cost of your project. So next we have our overlaminates, banner accessories, if I'm putting power tape or double-sided hem tape on there, my grommets, I've got my non-heat transfer tapes, or application tapes and R tape and all those in there. And then I've got substrates down here for those of you that are using Coroplast or foam core, and you can again update all this stuff down to the black line, and it will automatically do the calculations for you. You just need to put in the width, length, and the price per sheet, or on rolled goods if you, on the digital and the CAD cut medias, if you've got it into a cutter, how much is taken out. This is not how much is taken out, that's the width of the roll of the tape there. So once you've got everything filled out the way you want it to with the products that you use, you can go back to the main page once again. And now we can get into some calculations. So let's do a heat transfer calculation. When I click on this button, this is the main tabs. The heat transfer and the sign products tabs are the two that you're probably going to use the most, because once we've got our medias and everything in there, we're not going to be adding and subtracting all the time. We're going to be running some jobs. And you can see I've got some data that's in here. I did the 12 by 12 on quick prints, and I've got EcoMass that I used in there, and it came on down to $3.30. Well, wait a minute, $3.30. I was less than that when we calculated it out before. Well, I left it in there on purpose to show you something. So let's go back to the main page, and then I want to go to my mask, ink, and laminate. And if I look at this EcoMask for that one roll there, that 10-yard roll, it's $44 is the list price. But remember, I said I can use it twice. So if I say I can use it once, I'm actually being more conservative, and I'm having a higher cost calculated, but I would use that to figure out what my markup is to my customers, and I would be charging them slightly more. If I wanted something that was a little bit more realistic, maybe I'd put $22 in here, and that 44 cents looks a little bit more like what I had on my other calculation. And when I go back to, I can either go to the heat transfer one here, or I can return to main page and go to heat transfer, and you'll look, $2.86, that's a lot closer to what we had before. So that updated it and made it accurate again for me. So you can adjust all these to how you want it to run in your shop. So we've got the 12 and 12, EcoMask, one item in the job. Maybe I'm doing 20 of these. If I enter in 20 there, it updates this total job cost. That shows me all of the materials. So for each one of these, it was $2.86. It cost me in media, mask, and ink, and I'm doing 20 of them, so that total job is costing me $57.20. Well, how much am I going to sell each one of these shirts for? Maybe I'm going to sell it for $15. That's kind of low for a 12 by 12, especially by the national data that I got from all you guys. So let's maybe make that, we'll say 18. And now I can see, well, I got to add in the cost of the garment because that cost me something, so let's put in $3 there. And now I see how much profit I'm making per item. If I can complete 20 of these per hour, or maybe I'm going to do that whole job in an hour. I can do that. I've got it printing and cutting, and the time it takes me to weed it and mask it and apply it, total time in that job, maybe it's going to take me an hour of actual activity. That will take in the profit per item and multiply it by how many I can do per hour. It's 242 cents. And my shop rate right here was taken from my overhead tab, where we calculated that out. I need to make $63.38 per hour to be able to keep my shop open, pay the bills, pay the employees, and all that kind of stuff. And I can see profit after overhead per hour is $179.42. So also, it kind of jumped over here without us doing anything, and it told me how many yards I need to complete this job. That's based on the width and the length of it and the type of media that I'm using. Because QuickPrint, I had it down as a 30-inch material, it's going to use that data in there to be able to figure out how many yards of this media I need to complete the job. In the future, we're going to add another button, another function down here that will read off of what media you're using here, and you'll be able to, hey, I don't have enough QuickPrint here to do this job. I'd be able to click on that, and it'll take you right to the web page so you can order that media. So one last thing on this page here is the markup multiplier. if I want to take my cost of a single design right here, and I've talked to a bunch of different shops and tried to find out different methods. On the heat transfer items, a lot of times I hear people say, for retail, I'm going to mark up my cost of the media, ink, mask, and everything else, and multiply that by 3. And for wholesale, I'm going to multiply it by 2. So if I put 3 in here, it took that number over here and multiplied it by 3 and gave me my total for this job. So that's what that one's there for. And if I wanted to do a wholesale pricing, I could do this. And that is a way you can figure out your cost of it. If I did 3 right here, it's $8.58 plus my $3. That's not quite my 18. So this isn't a 100%, this is the way you're going to calculate everything out, but it is a good way to figure out what multiplier you need or how you want to go about it. So this was set up for digital print and cut. But what if I'm doing a CAD cut only job and I don't need all this other stuff? I'm not going to use ink and I'm not going to use mask. Well, before I jump to that, if I want to reset everything on here and go again, I simply click on the reset fields and it resets all those values in there for me. So if I've made a mistake or something's not looking right, maybe I hit reset and I can re-enter in the data. If I'm going to go over to a CAD cut only job, we'll click on the job type here, job type, and it's digital print cut transfer, and we'll drop it down and I'll do that CAD cut heat transfer. If you have a tough time seeing these drop down fields, adjust your view and you can zoom in a little bit more. Right now my zoom set at 100%, but different people have had different results. Unfortunately, there's no easy way to increase the font size in these drop down lists. So if you're having a tough time seeing it, adjust your zoom right here. So we'll go with, on this job, I'm going to do bling. So I go down to Spectra Bling. And my design is going to be that 4x4, so I'll put 4.5 by 4.5 because I want to account for that waste that's in there and still charge the customer for it. When I hit enter, it shows me the cost of that single design right there. And in this particular job, I'm going to be doing 12 shirts. And I'm going to sell each one of these shirts at $12 each. And the cost of the garment was, again, $3. So I can see my profit per item at this point is $8.63 based on the different variables I had. I can again use that markup multiplier if I wanted to, and that shows me $1.11 for multiplying by 3 if I was going to do that there, or however I wanted to use this. And then how many of these can I complete per hour? I got to cut it, I've got to weed it, and then apply it. So on these, I could probably, let's say 20 of them. I can do 20 per hour. And now that's higher than how many I need for the job. So that's where this overhead doesn't take into account multiple jobs being done at the same time or jobs that are less than the full amount for the hour. So if I could only do, say, maybe 6, it would take into account there and show me what my loss is going to be in that instance because I'm not getting enough done. But if I say I can do all 12 per hour on that particular job, I'm making $40.18 over my operating costs. So, and you can use this a number of different ways. This isn't meant to be the end-all, be-all, but it is a great way to get your costs. It's a great way to calculate out a markup on it and work from there to build more. And we are going to be adding more to it, also based on what you guys input to us. So that's the CAD cut transfer. I'll reset my fields. And let's go back to the home page. And now we're going to do one with signed product. Now, signed product's a little bit more involved because, well, there's more variables into it. If I'm doing, say, a CAD cut sign, I'll drop this down and go to CAD cut, and I'm going to use, see, now I have a tough time seeing it there, so let's adjust our zoom level, and we'll take this up to 100%. And that made it real nice and tight across there, and I can drop this down and we can see it a little bit better. So I'm going to use the DuraCal prints, and my design is, it's going to be an 18 by 24 Coroplast sign. So I'm going to do 18 and 24. Actually, let's make that 24 for the width and 18 for the length going up. Doesn't matter which way you put it in there. I was just being particular about how I do things. And cost of the design, it shows me right there. You see it blocked out right here, all the digital in. So when we switch this up here for the job type, it's going to block out the opposite. And I put that in there because some people who were doing the initial testing for me said it was a little confusing to have both of them in there, and it helped out. And it also blocks out here when I'm doing CAD cut. I'm not going to be using an ink. I'm not going to be laminating it, so it removes those costs from there and blocks it so it's not confusing you as well. Maybe on this job here, I'm going to cut it and then I need to weed it out and mask it. And I'm going to use my DuraPro application tape. 14 inches is a little too narrow, so I'm going to go with the 24-inch one. Doesn't change there because actually the cost of the DuraPro application tape is the same per square inch on the different rolls, but I like to have it match up with what I'm going to be working with. I'm not using any hem tape. This isn't a banner, and I don't need any grommets. But I am going to be putting this onto a Coroplast sign. So I'll come down here, and I'm going to say yes to that. And on my Coroplast sign, I'm going to change this to a 18 by 24, 4 millimeter. And notice over here, it's updated all my different costs as I'm going along. And how many are we going to do in this job? The customer wants 20 of them. So it shows me my total cost of the job is $90.40. And I am going to sell each one of these at $15. And now I'm making $10.48 per unit. And how many of these can I complete in an hour? I've got 20 of them, so maybe in an hour I'm going to be able to get, we'll say 15. So when I hit 15 in there, it shows me that my profit per hour is $93.82. And again, it feeds from the shop rate and how much I had per hour on the job, and subtracts that out. So you can see, again, yards, oh, I found an error. That's not supposed to be a currency, so I'll write that down. And we'll correct that, and it'll be updated on the next release. But it would be 12.97 yards to complete it. Notice this is an approximation. It's based on how you fit it into there and everything, based on the media. But it gives you an idea of what you need to. So I need to change that from a currency value. I could also do the markup multiplier, which is a little bit harder to figure out with the sign products. There's no real easy calculation that I found that times 3 or times 5 or anything like that. But maybe in your shop you're saying for retail I'm going to do times 5, and that comes out to $22.60, $22.60 is what we would be charging for that. So again, you can switch this all around. You can edit it, all the different fields here, and all of this stuff, this DuraCal prints. Remember in that data area that we had for the CAD cut, it had a whole bunch of blank areas below it. You can see that this field goes all the way down to the bottom here, and then there's open areas. That's to account for the open areas that was in the data calculation. So to kind of, I think it was on heat transfer and CAD cut, we put in the Steve material. So if I scroll down here, there's the Steve material right there. And we'll do a 4x4 on this, and it's going to be a pricey item. $2.69 for 4x4. Now I'm just being goofy. So back to the sign products. Again, we can reset the fields, and it changes everything back to a 0 value. And I could also go back to the main page if I wanted to. That's the basic walkthrough of using the calculator. We are going to get to some questions here. And there's one other thing I wanted to show you is regional data. Now this is not complete. I'll admit it right now. I was trying to get a whole bunch of great data for you guys out there. There is some very good data in here already, but as you can see right off the bat, I don't have any data for Alabama and Alaska and some other states. So I'm still looking from you guys, from established shops and anybody else that wants to share the information based on this criteria here, what you're charging. Now all of these values down here are average from all the responses that I've gotten. So we'll take, I'm in New York State right now. So we'll come on down to New York, and for New York State, for a CAD cut single color shirt, the average that they're getting here is $12.43. Now I've got a good friend that lives down in Brooklyn, and he gets much more than $12.43. This is a statewide average. I may in the future break this down to a little bit more regional based on if you're in a city or if you're in a rural area and so forth, but you can see the averages across here. $5.93 per square foot for a banner, $7.79 for decal. This isn't too far off from what I'm getting in the area that I'm at. So I looked at this and talked to a couple of shops after I'd gotten some of these averages, and a lot of people said that this wasn't too far off. Some of them, like Massachusetts here, $20.40 for digital print. I thought that was a little on the high side, but from the data that we got from different customers, they're getting much more for digital print shirt out there than I would be able to in New York where I'm at. $15 is about correct for, and the criteria for digital print was a 4x4 inch left chest and a full back design, so 10 by 10, basically a square foot of media you would be using on that, and for both the CAD cut and the digital. Now, I wanted to scroll down to the bottom because a couple people had asked me, and here is the nationwide average going across. So nationwide, from all the different states and all the data that I got, we're getting about $9 per square foot for decal material and $6 per square foot for banner, around $15 for left chest and a full back for digital print, and right around $13 for just a CAD cut 4x4 front and a full back. So that's kind of some interesting data. I'm going to keep updating it, and once I've got the formulas worked out, this map over here will be interactive, and you'll be able to click on, say, like Michigan, and it would come up with the data over here for Michigan, and maybe even be able to dial it down a little bit more if you're in an urban area or rural, etc. So some good data for you guys to use right now, and we'll be advancing this in the future when we do more updates to it and get more data. So go back to the main page here, and we're going to jump over to the PowerPoint presentation. There we go. And make sure I hit all the different areas. Oop, I clicked once too fast. So we covered all this regional. How do I get updates? Again, the updates, even on the main page on the calculator, you can see down over here, you can also email me direct. And if you had some questions or you found something on the spreadsheet that's an incorrect calculation, like that one currency indicator I had that I need to go back and fix, or maybe you've got some feedback or suggestion, or you see something that could work a little bit better on it, please let me know. This is going to be a dynamic project with me and all of you out there to try to get something that makes all of our lives a lot easier. So let's go back to PowerPoint. And like I said, I want you guys to test out the calculator. I need your feedback. If you find something that doesn't work or a calculation's off or something like that, I need to know so I can fix it for everybody. And what features do you guys want added? I've got the metallic and white ink is going to be added probably this week. And I've got a couple other features here like that link to be able to order products and a few other in the bag. We'll just put it that way. I'm not going to give out all my secrets right now. But please let me know what you guys want added so that we can make this better for everybody. I specifically left time at the end of this so that we could have some Q&A. And I see there's something here. I don't know if 30-inch media. I think I may have covered that. There was a question that popped up on my end here. If you're using 30-inch media and your design is 12 by 12, what about the other 4 inches of media? On that, actually, I didn't touch that, but that's a great question. What I would do on that one, if I know I'm going to be using another 4 inches of media in there, instead of using 24 for my calculation of width on there, or the what would be 25, because I do 12.5 and 12.5 wide, I would add it on there to go all the way to the full width of the media. So I'm going to use that whole media in the calculation. So let me jump back to that real quick. And we'll go to a sign product and say on this one for the DuraCal, if I know I'm going to be that 12-inch by 12-inch, I would do, instead of 12.5 by 12.5, and I know I'm going to use that whole 28, I do 14 by 14 to account for that whole width on it. Or I could do 14 by 12.5, really, because the 14 is going to be the width of it, and 12.5 is still the length. And that would calculate in what is wasted on that material for me. So hopefully that answers the question out there, and I'm sure we've got a couple more here, Jody.
We do, actually. Mike was actually wondering, and I do think you did mention this, and we did see it, I thought, but I could be wrong, if the imprintable supply costs are already included in the calculator.
Say that again? I'm sorry.
If the imprintable supply costs are already included in the calculator?
Supplies as in grommets and stuff like that, they are. They're in the mask ink and extras tab. So if I go down to that one, you can add it in under banner accessories or grommets, but maybe I could put in another accessories cost in here for different items. So if that individual has a specific item that they'd like to see added in here and a way to calculate that out, please send me an email and I'll figure a way to add it in there. This calculator is mostly for consumables. So say you're getting a Seal-It pen, which is a consumable, but it's really hard to judge how much that you're going to use, or maybe cutting blades. And I possibly could add something there for cutting blades or trimming up all our stuff, and you average going through one cutting blade a week, and we could work out a calculation for that. So if everybody wants something on that, please send it to me, and I'll see if I can add it into the calculator.
Great. And Jeremy, or actually I did have a couple questions now. Is this calculator something that each person would save to their computer, or do they really only need the link since it's dynamic and changing?
No, you will save it to your computer. It's not going to be web-based. So it's an Excel spreadsheet right now. You save it to your computer, but please supply us with that email address. If you don't want to know about future updates, let me know, and I'll take you off the mailing list. But whenever I do an update, I'm not going to be sending out an email every day, hey, I added in one category. Weekly or maybe monthly, or whenever I do a major change to it, I'll send that out to everybody that's on the email list saying, hey, it's updated. If you go download it again, it'll have those updates in it. Now, if you're going to be adding different items in here that are not in the database right now for product, and you want to have those items available to you later on, you would rename the one that you have on your computer and then copy and paste those products over to the new one that you download. So there's no real merge feature, but let me write that down and see if I can find a way to do a merge on it. So, but for right now, you would have to copy and paste those over.
Okay. And Lorna would like to know, what calculation method would you use for coming up with electricity costs for an at-home shop?
That's a great question. My wife and I, when we started in business, we were outside of, we were in our house and in a extra bedroom. And the way we looked at it is how much space in our house was being taken up by the business. At first when he started off, it was an extra bedroom. Then next thing I know, it's the den. Now it's part of the basement. And I kind of took a look at how much square foot. So if I had a 2,000 square foot house and it was taking out 500 square feet, that's a quarter of my cost. And what I did is I simply just took a quarter of the electricity cost, and that's what it was for that, which probably wasn't absolutely positively correct, because some of the equipment that I had at the time, including a screen printing setup, that dryer used quite a bit of electricity. So it would depend on the type of equipment you're using, and you could take a look at possibly an electric bill before you got a certain piece of equipment, and a month later how much it was after you were using that equipment, and kind of gauge how much you need to add to it. And then on the overhead tab, that would go under utilities, or you could create a separate field for electricity. So that's how I would do it if I were to add it in there.
Great. And can you show everybody, Stephen, one more time? Denise would like to know where you put in the number of hours it takes to do the job.
Sure. It's not really, it's actually per hour. It's already in there. It's based on the shop rate per hour. So down here, it'd be items I complete per hour. So on this job here, I had the Steve. I'm doing a 12 by 12 number of items in the job. This is a 20-piece order. And each one of these pieces, I've got to charge $30 for it. And the cost of the garment was $1. So I've got $4.76 profit in this item per item. And in that 1 hour, I'm saying I can do 20. Now, if I could only do 10, I would put 10 in there. I can get done per the hour, but it's going to be a negative value because of the expenses involved in this. But all that does is takes that shop rate that we calculated and takes how much profit you're making per hour based on the cost of the materials and what you're selling it for, and then subtracts that from your shop rate. So in this one, it ends up being a negative. So like I said, the overhead calculator, it doesn't take into account multiple processes. Because in this one here, maybe I'm cutting this media, and at the same time, I'm off printing a banner. So I'm technically doing two things on that per hour. So the way I look at this is, if this job alone, these 20 items, for time that I'm going to be attending to it and not doing something else, it's going to take me an hour, I would put 20 in there. Even though in all reality, the total time from beginning of the job to the end was 3 hours, but I was doing other things in between. So I would take a look at it that way. So hopefully that helps you out there.
Okay. And Bob actually has a great question. He'd like to know if you have any regional data for art fee, how much it costs per hour, possibly rates, since typically customer-provided art is generally not vector.
Absolutely. The way I look at that one is, here's your hourly fee right here. I'll go to overhead, and that number right there would be how much I would have to charge per hour to do artwork. So if my shop rate is $60 per hour, and I take a look at a piece of graphic that's been sent to me, and that graphic, I look at it and I go, you know, that's going to take me an hour to redraw that and get it in a usable format, well, then I need to charge $60 just to break even on this. Now, for redrawing, I send a lot of my stuff out. There's tons of different places you can do it. Artvart.com is one of them. There's a whole bunch of different ones out there. To get it redrawn, typically $15, maybe $20, and you get it back. And I look at that one as I took 5 minutes to write an email, send a graphic out, and I've gotten it back in the proper format to work on. And maybe I charged the customer $30 for that. And I just made, you know, what, 30 minus 15, I just made $15 for 5 minutes worth of work. But if I am going to be spending a lot of time setting up artwork and working on it and designing it, I would have to at least cover the shop operating cost to break even. So that's how I look at it.
Okay, and I think we have time for one final question. Roy was wondering, how do you price a two-sided Coroplast sign?
The two-sided Coroplast sign under your sign products there, we'll say that 18 by 24 again. Yeah, we're in Durcal prints. Got all our stuff down there. That's per one side. So if I have to do two sides, I would double this. So this would be 36 and 48 in the materials I would need for that one item. Even though when I come down here, my substrate is just one, that's correct, but I had to do double the amount of material to get that done. So that's how I would enter that in there to be able to get an accurate cost of what it's going to run me. So hopefully that helps you out, Roy.
And you have a very interactive audience who is just really excited about this calculator, and they have a lot of suggestions for you, so I will definitely forward all of these to you.
I've been seeing the email blow up here a little bit, so I know they're already sending it to me, which is great. It makes me pretty darn excited that everybody finds this useful. Hopefully you find it useful, and I'm looking forward to getting into your guys' suggestions and making it even better.
Yeah. And Jeremy wanted you to know that this calculator just saved him hours of setup for his business, and thank you.
Fantastic, Jeremy. I'm glad we could help out. Well, if there's no other questions, or
there are, but I'm going to forward them to you. We don't have time to get to them now, so I'm pretty sure okay. I know you typically respond to each of them in kind, and so I will definitely send them your way.
Excellent. I would encourage everybody, if I didn't answer your question here, even though Jody's going to send them to me, send them also to an email to me, because I'm going to go one by one through them and try to answer them as best I can. So please, if we didn't get to you, send me that question, and we'll see what we can do for you. All right, we got, I think, the end slide here. What video and webinar ideas you have, please send those to me also so we can get ideas for future webinars that are going to help you guys out. This webinar was a result of people requesting it. So we try to answer up to your stuff. And here's my contact information as always, imprintables.com. The phone number there, 800-347-0068 is our main line. 630-6655 is my desk phone. And my email down at the bottom there. And don't forget to go to Great Garment Graphics and look up all the other wonderful webinars they have. The next one's on the 29th. And what's that one on, Jody?
That is Selling Local, creating more opportunities with your local small businesses in the area.
Another great topic. Finding good business for us to do. So excellent. All right, everyone. Again, thank you for taking time out this afternoon. And I hope to see you guys all at the next webinar.
Yes, and thank you for joining, Stephen. This was excellent. I'm really excited to post this other places.
My pleasure.
Yes.
Thanks a lot, guys.
Have a great week.
You too.